Hey, Chris, it's been a minute. How you been?
Good. How you guys doing today?
Not too bad. So the story, of course, is I couldn't believe it. Last Thursday, not this yesterday, but a week before, we were doing the Christmas in the City event down the Seaport Hotel in Boston, the big annual event, and you have this writer for the cheekily named Inside Carolina reporting at the time, like, Bill Belichick's really going to end up taking this job as the head coach of the University of North Carolina. I laughed because, look, we were on the right side of history, Chris, you and I.
Yes, we were.
Tom over team, all this. Like, there's no way. Like, it's going to be this kind of sad end for Bill Belichick taking the head coaching job down at North Carolina. Like, it can't get this bad, right? Well, now it's official. He does the press conference yesterday, and I found the thing, personally, just kind of humiliating. What did you make of all of this?
Yeah, it was interesting to watch it. It was a little bit sort of dismaying to me. It felt a little bit like a Saturday Night Live skit. Like, I kept asking myself, is this real? Well, when you look at it, and I think between that and you read the Wickersham story, though, and you understand why he's taking this job and how he's getting there. And also, if you look at the contract, the fact that it's a $10 million buyout before June 1 of 2025, and it's $1 million after, which is, $1 million for Bill. That's nothing. That's like him pulling a $10 bill basically out of his wallet to get out of this down the line. I just have real questions about this fit. Clearly, the upshot is he desperately wanted to coach again. He wanted to go back to it. I think he understood, and Mazz was right on this, that if he stayed out another year, it would be hard to get any sort of job. So he took this one. But when I look at college football and the landscape of college football, while it has become more like the NFL in a lot of ways with general managers and having to figure out how you are going to allocate your money and your resources, the reality is the biggest knock on Bill when he left here was that he couldn't get buy-in from the young players, professional players, Gen Z players. Now he's going to go, and that's all he's going to deal with, is guys down there at North Carolina who all think they're headed to the NFL, and some of them aren't good enough. And if they don't get the playing time they want or the NIL money they want, they're just going to go into the portal and they're out. And now you have to rebuild your whole team. And if he couldn't get professionals that he was paying to buy into his 6 Super Bowl rings, how is he going to get young players who want NIL money but also want to be showcased so they can have a professional football career to buy in? I just don't love the fit for him in college football, and I don't love the fit for him with a middling college football program, which is what North Carolina is.
Yeah, Chris, I'm totally with you on that. I don't think this is actually going to work for Bill at North Carolina. And you and I are in agreement that, he went there because I think everybody agrees because he couldn't get a job at the NFL level. What does he have to do at UNC, do you think? What does he have to do to get back to the NFL level? How successful does he have to be at UNC next year to make that happen?
I would have to say 10 wins if he has a 10-win season. But really, I think it's less about what he does at North Carolina and more about what happens in the NFL with some other teams. And are there teams, I don't want to say that get desperate, maybe teams that get wise to what Bill Belichick can bring to the table. Look, I don't think that there are 6 or 7 better head coaching candidates out there in the NFL than Bill Belichick. That said, given his age and the very specific way he wants to manage things, he's not going to be a fit for every team. He's probably a fit for teams that are trying to get over the hump. And a lot of those teams this year, like Philadelphia and Buffalo, are actually having pretty good seasons. And you wouldn't move on from the head coach based on the seasons that they're having. So I think the pool for Bill is narrower to begin with. I just also sort of question, again, when you look at the college game, I feel like a lot of times there's a greater disparity in performance from week to week and a greater disparity in talent. A lot of times just simply the more talented teams, when you start to get to the elite teams, your Ohio States, your Texas, your Georgia, when those teams play teams that are more like North Carolina, you can be in that game, but normally they're going to pull it out at the end. So I think it'll be harder actually than at the pro level where there's so much parity. I think it's harder for him to show the impact of his coaching. Like, college to me is not the place where you can just kind of coach him up and win 9 or 10 games. You either have the talent to do that or you don't.
So you don't think, obviously they're going to go in the transfer portal. I don't think he's going to build this thing around freshmen and build it up for a few years. He's very different than Deion personality-wise, but Deion was going for a certain kind of player.
Sure.
Mike Lombardi sort of said it the other day. If you're a player trying to get to the NFL, and there are guys that is their primary goal, how successful do you think he can be in the portal, and what kind of talent do you think he can bring there?
Yeah, the interesting thing about the portal, and I know you know this, Alex, yes, I mean, obviously there's an appeal there. And look, Dion has cycled through a ton of players. Some of them have worked out really well, and some of them really have not. Frankly, I don't think Colorado would be that good. I want to see what Colorado is post Shedeur Sanders. Like, it's one thing, like, if Bill Belichick had Stephen or Brian Belichick, the 5-star quarterback, to come there and top 10 pick, then it would be a different story. But I want to see what Colorado looks like without Dion's son as one of the best quarterbacks in college football. So, yeah, there's some appeal there, but I think a lot of NIL for a lot of these kids is not how much money can you help me make in the NFL. It's how much money can you pay me now. Like, you have the situation with Caleb Downs, who was at Alabama, and yes, Saban left and Kalen DeBoer came in, but it's still Alabama. And he leaves for Ohio State because they're backing up the Brinks truck for him. And that's what it is. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what sort of appeal Bill has. I could see it being appealing to certain defensive players and certain quarterbacks that maybe want to play for Bill Belichick. But I don't know if he's going to have the appeal to build an entire roster that's really competitive at a top 25 level, right away.
But just that we're even talking about him in these terms, isn't it just kind of sad that it ended up this way, Chris? Like, you read the Seth Wickersham story yesterday, I'm assuming, right?
I did. I read it.
In that he and his cronies, specifically Mike Lombardi, are going through, I said it yesterday, it's like when it's like a bunch of nerds in 8th grade, and I was one of them, talking about girls that wouldn't look at you, twice, but you're like nitpicking what's wrong with them. Like, well, she has kind of a flat ass. I don't know. Like, these girls want nothing to do with you. The way they're talking about these NFL teams, well, I don't know, like, if I really like the structure with the Jaguars, like, they don't want you. And even the Jets thing, to me, watching that yesterday, Chris, and now that he has to answer to a boss named Bubba, and
Bubba Cunningham,
cutting
the AD there,
cutting the sleeves off of his suit to try, like, the whole thing was just so gross. So it would be less humiliating, I think, for Bill Belichick to stand on a stage and compliment Woody Johnson, who again he thinks is like the worst owner in the league, and saying how much he respects the Jets organization, than doing that thing yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't think the Wickersham story really helped him, and it continues a pattern where. And this has been a pattern with Bill, I think, frankly, for a long time, even when he was successful here. When something goes wrong, it's somebody else's fault. When something is right, even if he doesn't come out and take credit for it, we get, basically, as he would say, we got a 400-page Bible about how great Bill Belichick is. When something is good. When things don't go his way, it's somebody else's fault. Robert Kraft torpedoed me. The owners are all idiots. All this other stuff. Look, the owners can look at what the record is. If Robert Kraft is being barred from the Hall of Fame in part, and this is what I've heard, because it's like, well, look what happened after Tom Brady left, then why is Bill Belichick, constitutionally entitled to another NFL job based on what happened post Brady and what his career record is without Tom Brady? That doesn't mean he's not a great coach. That doesn't mean he's not a genius. He's all of those things. But I think that it's in his mind, it still is like all about him. Like, they won because it was all about him. And there's just limitations to how far great coaching can really take you. And I feel like he still doesn't get that. So when other people in the league look at that and say, geez, I don't know, if I bring him in, yes, he's a great coach. Yes, he'll make us better. But do we have the talent? Will he procure the talent that we need? How does it work? Instead of him maybe accepting that or trying to look at it a different way, all these owners are idiots and I have to answer their stupid questions and it's insulting to me. It's always somebody else's fault. Whether it's Super Bowl 42 and not taking responsibility for the zero blitz, or when Pat Chung did the fake punt against the Jets, he was just this rogue player that, called for a fake punt. It wasn't something that they had practiced. It wasn't like a specific call or look that they had in the playbook in terms of, if you get this look, we're going to do this thing. It's always somebody else that has to take the blame when it's a negative.
Is that one of the reasons why Bill has, frankly, isolated himself from the majority of people out there? Because they know he might ultimately, they might ultimately be the fall guy, for lack of a better term. They're going to get blamed, Chris, because I think this is one of the issues here, is that Bill has isolated himself and has only surrounded himself with true, absolute loyalists like Mike Lombardi and Matt Patricia
The
and
true
his son-
believers.
the true believers, right?
Yeah.
Probably the folks who are saying, yeah, Bill, no, the NFL doesn't need us. They don't need you. You should go somewhere where you're wanted and they deserve you. Is that one of the reasons he's ended up at UNC with, again, all of those same people?
I think it's one of the reasons he's with some of those people. Look, two things can be true in that he needs to take a little bit more sort of accountability for why he's not getting hired, but also, like, he deserves another shot in the NFL. I truly believe that. So on some level, I do get his frustration, but I just think when I look at the story that came out after he didn't get the Falcons job in this story from Wickersham, basically, defecating all over the people that are going to hire you and calling them idiots for not hiring you isn't going to help you get hired. I don't see how that ultimately benefits him. And it sort of plays into the perception of Belichick and the Patriots when they were winning that a lot of people in the league had that rubbed them the wrong way, which was that they have this sort of holier than thou, have it all figured out personality and persona. And if he showed a little bit more, I think, humility, then maybe somebody would sort of come to their senses here and say, you know what, this guy can really help us. Let's bring him back in. But I don't think that the way he's sort of gone about this and the way the story was written, where it's like, well, I'm not. It's not a situation where you're telling me no. I'm telling you no. The NFL is now evolved to a point where it's not worth my time. I mean, that's just not believable.
No, it's a crock is what it is, Chris.
If you like that clip, check out more videos from Felger and Mazz here. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.